I hope that you are seated comfortably, with the light turned down and the curtains drawn.
Somebody there?
Hello, welcome back to Ecto Portal. I'm Tony Anderson, and this is my co-host.
I'm Verna Wilson. Nice to be back, and nice to be back with all your listeners.
Absolutely. After last week's topic, we have something completely new for you this week. You want to go ahead and share with them what we've got?
Yes, we're going to be talking about ghost hunting and the respect and ethics that go with it when you're researching and when you're looking into spirit activity.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of do's and don'ts in ghost hunting. A lot of respect you should have, even though a lot of people think it's a joke, it's funny, haha, I want to scare everybody. But yeah, that's going to be this week's topic. So what did you do this weekend? Anything? Any investigating, any looking around, anything interesting?
This weekend? No, I didn't do any of that. I've experienced a little bit of spirit activity in my house, but it's an old apartment. I've explained that before, but nothing to really write home about. Just
relax. Did you do anything?
Just relax. Nothing special. No, nothing.
Well, this last weekend I went to Virginia City, Nevada, back at one of my old haunts, with the ghost hunting gang and the tour guides in Virginia City because it's the Comstock. Investigated the Washoe Club again. Miner's Cabin, just kind of talked to a lot of people, hung out, made some preliminary ideas, possibly for a documentary in the future, a historic one and a paranormal, so that we'll see where that goes later on. Yeah, just hanging out with friends, folks, just ghost hunting and having a good time, like paranormal investigators generally do. That's great.
There's a lot of these small towns around California where I've just gone on trips to look around, and they seem to have a history of a lot of investigators coming in every once in a while, but it's good to talk to the locals and always get their view on the town's history and what they've experienced when they've walked around and how they've experienced the town in their everyday lives. Because, being around these old buildings and around this place that's still has all these old places standing up. These old buildings and signs. I'm sure I'm sure there's stories that probably don't even make it on the documentaries or TVs, and it's good to interview people. And
it's exactly true. When I go up there, a lot of times I'll ask anybody, any shop owner, any friend of friend. So, what are your experiences? What stories do you have? Because everybody has one, maybe 4, maybe 5. And I'm fascinated by some of them. So whenever I go up there now, I'm going to start collecting interviews and stories that we can play on the show itself. Just because everybody's got a ghost story somehow, whether it be themselves or someone they know. So it's kind of fun to collect those. And it's interesting because a lot of people go to Virginia City because of the charm and it's the Gold Rush Old Town look, Bonanza Town. So and they want to live there for a while, and then they have experiences. And I've seen skeptics go in and come out believers a lot. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. So we'll be definitely collecting those stories to share on air.
And I will do as well next time. I pass through some of those towns. I passed some towns recently this year, such as Jackson, which is a very small town.
Yeah.
And and went into some very old antique shops where there was some very interesting items, and there was some of these rooms had some items that you could just tell the energy was attached to a lot of them because they were so old.
Really?
And, yeah. Like there was this one room full of nothing but dolls in there.
Ooh,
and
creepy.
Yeah. Oh, very creepy. And I posed. There was one. I actually posed a picture where there's this one doll where every time I show that picture, everybody goes, "Oh my God, that doll's expression!" But there was all these dolls were very, very old, and you can tell they had the energy of the owner attached to them in that whole room. And so anyway, there was that. There was Lockton, which is another town. I think Ghost Adventures actually did a
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we talked to some of the locals there, and they told us a little bit about some of their experiences. And there's some other places we passed through that.
There's a lot of little pocket ghost towns and gold
Right.
rush towns in this state. That's what's great about California is there's so many.
Right.
You know, some are obviously deteriorated and gone, but there's a lot that are thriving and are communities. It's nice because
Yeah.
they restore it, they maintain it, they don't plow it down or destroy it. They actually sort of celebrate it.
Right, and another town is Mariposa.
Oh yeah, Mariposa.
Remember we were in
With our lodge.
Mariposa? Yeah, that restaurant that we were in.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that restaurant had the old decor, the old Western decor in
Yep.
there, and you can feel the energy in that restaurant. And
Especially when we had to clear the bar,
right,
go behind the bar, clear something aside to crawl down under the bar into the dirt cellar. Mm-hmm. That was fun.
Yeah.
Wasn't very big, but we're all down there. We're like, wow, it feels really, really different down here. I mean, granted, we're in a hole.
right.
But it still had a different vibe to it. Everyone agreed there was something different about being down there.
Yeah.
So,
and just sitting at that table eating, I was kind of thinking to myself, oh my God, I can already feel and see somebody. I could just feel the atmosphere already. I mean, I could feel what it was like back then. And that Oddfellows Hall too.
yeah.
You definitely felt it in that old hall.
And I know that restaurant used to be an old general store, so there's a lot of activity, people coming and going, meeting, wanting, talking, laughing, whatever. So who knows what kind of energy is still around.
Yeah, and I remember visiting also Mariposa some years before and going to an old church graveyard, and you definitely felt a lot of soul energy around there. And then I walked past this one building that was empty, and I looked inside. I'm not even sure if it's filled by now, but it had the old decor still, like you see the lamps and the old bars and everything, the old bar stools. And I looked and I went, wow, I could tell this was a saloon, and it was just really cool. I mean, it was, that town pretty much has new shops in there, but that building was had some old decor in there, and I was like, wow.
It's funny you should say that because whenever I go anywhere, my grandfather was an architect, and I'm an artist, but I'm not an architect. But I geek out when I go into old buildings because I love to figure out what they were before they were repurposed or what was changed, what's original. And I ask the weirdest questions, and the owners look at me like, why is he asking me why this door frame stops right here? Because it might have gone to another door. The door might not have been there. It might have been moved. And people ask the weirdest questions. We went to a winery in Napa a couple of years ago to investigate. And the press guy who gave us the walking tour while we did our preliminary said, oh, yeah, this was a giant, where all the wine barrels were kept. It was a giant wood, like for lack of a better word, a barn. And it had multiple stories. And they just kept the giant barrels in there fermenting. And it was old, and there was a little cupola on the very top that the owner's wife used to sit in on afternoons and have lunch while her husband worked down in the winery. And they said, oh, it's haunted. We want you to come check it out. And then I looked, and I was looking at the boards in the ceiling. I'm like, wow, these are all really, really singed, like black. And I said, was there a fire? He goes, yeah, that actually burned down. It was rebuilt. I said, well, I think by looking at these boards, they reused a lot of the lumber because you can still see the burned lumber. He goes, I don't know. I don't think so. I go, oh, can you find out? And he asked someone, and that's exactly what they did. They
That's
took
exactly
the old
what
lumber.
happened.
But that's
Yeah.
me snooping, looking around, checking things out in little details. So I geek out as the architect in me somewhere, I guess.
I love finding out about old architecture. I went into this old courthouse in Benicia recently, and I think they tried to give us a tour at first, but we just kind of went in on our own after a while. But they mentioned that some of the wood in there was actually wood built from the old planks of ships that they got from the pier. They were emptying out
Took the
lumber from the ships, and they actually took some of that old wood and they actually built it into some of the walls. And we were and I noticed that the wood was an interesting quality from the wall there.
It's funny because the Fior d'Italia and the San Remo, a lot of the big beams in the basement are from large sailing ships from Europe.
Yeah.
From the gold rush. They just took that same thing. They repurposed that lumber because they're huge beams and they're in good condition. They may have been a boat, but it's solid wood and it's still standing. It's still holding the restaurant and the hotel up. So, hey, if you can repurpose wood, that's recycling at its best, right?
Yeah, and architects had a different idea on when they were building things on how to make it useful for people. Like, take, for example, here we go again talking about my apartment. But
that's okay.
That's okay. But
it's your show.
It's my show. It's my apartment, and it's very old. But I noticed that you probably noticed this too, Anthony. In these old apartments in San Francisco, the hallways are lower, and the doorways are lower because people were shorter back then.
You know, you're right. I didn't really think about it, but when I've been in older Victorian apartments and stuff, they are a little narrower.
They're a little narrow, a little lower,
yeah,
and
lower.
I found out it's because people were a little smaller built, and they were shorter back then, so they made them for a smaller built person.
And the stairs are a little more
stairs
narrow.
are a little more narrow, so you know that was their ideas back then, but they were trying to make it useful for the people at the time, and well, you know, obviously when people rebuild or they remodel things, they modernize it a little, so it's very cool to find out how the original was actually thought out and
design.
Yeah.
Some buildings are just so repurposed, and new walls go up, and then new walls go up, walls come down, walls come up, that it's a hard time sometimes figuring out what was actually real. And a lot of times the new owners have no idea how the original structure was. But if it's old enough, you can find out. But usually newer buildings that have been around for maybe 100 years, some people have no idea. They've just been, it's a bar, it's a restaurant, it's a bookstore, it's a house, you know.
Right. And I heard that in England, in a couple of buildings, when they tore down a wall or some of the painting peeled off, they found out that there was a painting revealed of something, or a tapestry or something that used to be there. I think they actually found a couple of don't misquote me, Tudor freaks, but they found an old painting of Henry VIII that was unknown in one building in England. And
what was it behind? Do you know?
You know, I think it was behind this wall panel that was over it.
They just covered it up.
If
with
I
wall
misquoted
panel.
that, don't go ahead and correct me. You're entitled to it. I'm a history freak too. So
speaking of misquotes,
speaking of misquotes, okay, I got to correct something from the last show.
Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, let's get this out of the way. Okay, first of all, John Cullen from the Stanley Hotel is very much alive and well.
Yay!
We got that straightened out. It was misinformation from somebody who gave me the news.
We won't mention any names,
We
Linda.
won't mention the name, but this teaches me a lesson that I have to research my news no matter who gives it to me, because, you know, that sometimes they can get a name wrong. They got the hotel name slightly wrong, too.
What was the hotel? The real hotel?
She said the Stanley Hotel, but it's actually the Shanley Hotel. Actually, the individual who did pass away, sadly enough, his name was Sal Nicosia. If I said his name wrong, please forgive me. If anybody's been to the Shanley Hotel and they knew who Sal was, I didn't mean to pronounce his name. I was just trying to get the name of the person.
Where's that
correct.
hotel located?
That's in New York, actually.
Is it upstate?
It's I believe it's in upstate New York.
Okay. It's interesting. I've never heard of it, but then there's a lot of places upstate I've never heard of.
Well,
living there 6.5 years, I still discover new stuff all the time.
Well, apparently it's in what is the name of that town in New York? Let's see.
Just Tarrytown.
Neponok, New York.
Must be off the Hudson, it's my guess.
Yeah, Neponok, New York.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's apparently it's also been the subject of a lot of paranormal investigations, the same as the Stanley Hotel.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go check that out next time.
I
I'm in New
know.
York.
I never heard of it either, and I'd love to check it out.
I'm always looking for new haunts to look at.
Yeah, there's some places up in back east that I really want to check out. There's a spiritualist camp that's been around since the 1800s called Lily Dale that I want to go to.
Where's that at?
It is, where's Lily Dale? Here I get a brochure every single year telling me to go, and I don't even know where it is. Silly me.
Well, see, if you went, you would know, right?
Right.
Maybe that's the point. They keep sending them to you.
Well, I keep saying to myself, I got to go to Lily Dale one day. Linda and I actually both want to go to Lily Dale one day. It's like a spiritualist. It's in.
Is it a camp or just a compound?
It's in Lily Dale. It's a camp, but it's also. It used to be a camp and a carnival just for spiritualists. And
that sounds fun, actually.
It started in the 1800s. And it's where spiritualists gather. They did readings. They went on they had carnivals, a little carnival there. They had hotels where they could stay at, bookstores, little shops, things like that. And a lot of spiritualists used to live there, and they would open it up every summer.
Oh yeah, upstate New York. There it is.
Yeah, it's upstate New York.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of spiritualists from the Spiritualist Church. They do readings there, and they're there every year. And I would just love to go one of these days, and perhaps I'll do readings there one of these days, but I'd like to go and just experience it.
Just talk to people, hang out, and find out what other people are doing.
Yeah, and it would be a great place to get interviews, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be an awesome place. So, should we touch on our topic before we go to our first music break?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it. We're going to be talking about... We're going to be talking about when you're going on an investigation or when you're doing any kind of spiritual activity, be sensitive to your surroundings and have respect.
Yep. The ethics of ghost hunting, that's tonight's topic. And that, of course, will cover a lot of area besides just ghost hunting. Ethics of ghost hunting can cover how you talk to the living and how you treat the living and property of the living, as well as the dead.
Right.
It's just as equally important, if not more, you could land in jail or otherwise.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll be covering a lot of that tonight. I think as far as you were thinking of as investigations, like how you would approach communication with spirits or the unknown when you're actually investigating, what kind of respect do you give?
That was part of the topic. I definitely wanted to cover... I wanted to cover that. We were going to cover other parts of ethics, like such as services, when people charge a lot for services. Also, when you're entering somebody's property, or there's a lot of topics to cover that have to do with ethics and caring about where you are and what you're doing, and we will definitely go over all of these tonight.
That's cool, because I mean it's such a broad topic as far as respect.
Yeah.
I mean, respect is pretty much the bottom line for the whole thing.
Right.
Make sure everybody respects where you are, what you're doing, where you're supposed to be there or not, who you're with, how you investigate, and history, the property, and who you're trying to contact overall. Respect.
Right. Respect for the living, respect for your team, respect for the person that you're investigating with, and respect for the departed, and it all goes hand in hand, the whole thing.
Okay, and we are back.
Yep.
Did you get your paranormal snack during that break?
Are you asking me?
Sure, why not? Did you get your paranormal snack?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, awesome. So now we're going to go right into our topic, which is ethics of ghost hunting.
Right.
And go ahead and tell us what made you think of the topic, and then we'll go ahead and delve right into it.
Well, what made me think of the topic was actually something long before I started working with investigations.
Uh-huh.
Being around a lot of psychics and a lot of spirit activity, where I was in seances and involved in seances and readings and going into a lot of old buildings myself, a lot of people, I'm lucky. I knew a lot of people who had respect for this type of thing. But then I came along with a lot of people who treated it as a big joke and who was very disrespectful, and they interrupted things, and they just actually kind of spoiled things for everybody else. And I'm lucky that I haven't experienced much of that hardly any of that in the investigations that I've been on. But I've experienced a few things that I'm thinking, well, maybe that wasn't so good. So I just thought that it would be a good thing to talk to people in case you ever experience this type of thing, how, or you're going to be conducting it yourself, how you should treat the situation, and what are some good guidelines to follow.
Do you have any examples of that, or?
I'm trying to think of some examples. Well, like take for example, one time I was sitting with some friends, and we were sitting around, and we were actually doing some meditating, and we were going to be doing we decided that we wanted to do a seance, because there was this one person who in our group who wanted to see if she can get a hold of her grandfather from years and years ago, and she said, let's all do a seance, and me and my friends agreed. So we invited a couple of people from outside to come with us and do it. And these people generally, we're good friends, and we didn't think anything of it. So we all sat around quiet. We all held hands, and we were all just trying to get people in. And then this one person in the group just had, right when we were all quiet, and we just were hearing little noises here and there, we were trying to just be quiet and just let things happen. This person started laughing and laughing and laughing. And I know that when somebody does that, it's to cover up fears, or it's to cover up nervousness.
Yeah.
And
were they novices though?
Yes and no. This person actually had been in a couple of activities that we'd done before, but nothing that serious. More of sitting around readings or sitting around while we did other things. So she's been around it. This person had been around it, but not as serious as a seance. And she started giggling and giggling, and then we all just had to let go of our hands. We had to, and I came on and I turned on the lights, and I said, "Forget it. Let's stop this right now." And then she said, and then she turned around and she goes, "Stop being so serious. Cut it out." She said, "I was just having fun. I was just laughing." I said, "Listen, you spoiled it for this one person here." And she said, "Well, come on." And then she said, let's try it again. So I said, "Okay, we'll try it again." We turned off the phones, turned off the lights. We did it. And then we started hearing little noises here and there. And then we were quiet. And then all of a sudden she said, "I hear that," really loud. Excuse me if I'm shouting my voice here. She goes, "I hear that." And it kind of broke our concentration, and we all just had to end it that night. But it was turning into something that could have been something that could have happened for good. But because of this, we had to kind of stop it. And we were doing it actually to help one person. And it's kind of spoiled it for that person, and I had to apologize and say, "Listen, we're going to come back. You can come back, and we're going to just do it with just a few of us." And
did you ever do that with that person again?
No, she actually got busy, and she never got a chance to do it. She kept telling me, "I want to do it again. I want to do it again." She said, "I really felt something good was coming through. I really felt like something was going to happen." And we just had to apologize to her and say, "We're sorry. We didn't know that there was going to be Miss Giggles in the audience." And she said, "Well, maybe we should have just kept going." And I said, "Well, that would have been a little hard with all that laughing around." I mean,
right.
The person apologized. She said, "I really didn't mean it." And I'm like, "Well, I know, but..."
Yeah, I had one similar to that where it was an event. Actually, it was an event a few years ago I was at. And the individual, it was a novice, had a recorder, didn't know anything about how to use it, didn't know anything about ghost hunting. I showed this person some techniques, EVP recording, how to tag everything, date, name, who's in the room, have people say their names. I mean, I have all kinds of things that I have people do. They don't realize they're tagging, but in the end, I tell them why I had them do what they did. Like I say my name, go around the room, people say their name. Well, he had a good time, and next thing you know, 2 years later, he comes back, and I see him at another event. And I thought, oh, he's still in it. That's interesting. I wonder if he's, investigated anywhere else. Is he good? And he was with another person who said, oh, we're both clairvoyant psychics. We are very professional, and if you need a reading, we'll think about it and let you know how much we charge. And I said, well, are you at this event? They're, yeah, we're here taking, just hanging out at the event itself. They weren't actually part of the event. And they were in my group. We were in a rotation, and it was a suicide in a room. And so they were trying to contact the spirit of the person who killed themselves in the actual room.
Oh, wow.
And so we start off respectfully asking questions, and next thing I know, this person is this now psychic in 2 years, from I've never touched a recorder, I don't know what the paranormal is, to we're both extreme professional psychics, said,
oh my.
So why did you kill yourself? Were you a coward?
Seriously?
Were you an ugly person? Did people hate you? What a coward for killing yourself. Why would you do that?
Oh my God.
You're a miserable human being. No wonder you probably deserve to die. And I'm over there going, wow,
that's harsh.
I would never do that, and everyone I know would never do that. If you're a real investigator, you would never provoke like that.
Oh no.
Maybe if you're on a TV show, you might. But as a real investigator,
even on a TV show, you shouldn't do that.
Well, exactly. But my opinion was, ask questions how you would want someone to ask them to you.
Right. Treat as you want to be
treated. If you
treated.
had hard times and you committed suicide, things were terrible for you, nobody knows the full story. Maybe you were depressed. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe something happened.
Right.
But I wouldn't want someone to come in there and go, oh, well, you killed yourself, because that's what everyone thinks. So why? You must be a coward. So who's going to respond to that? If you were on the other side and you had someone saying, why did you die? How did you die? Were you a horrible person? Was that why you killed yourself? Were you in debt?
Right.
Who wants to answer any of those questions, living or dead?
Now, you actually knew this person a little bit outside of this event. You didn't know her very well.
Him.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Not at all.
You didn't know him very well.
Nope.
So you didn't know if he talked to people like that in his normal life, or he just did it just to be funny that night.
Well, based on the 2 years prior when he was at the event, he was such a novice, very nice person, had no ill will to anybody that I could see.
Right.
The entire event, which is 3-4 hours. So to see it 2 years later, claiming you're a psychic, sensitive. If you're a psychic and you're sensitive, you're not that sensitive if you're doing that.
No, not if you're doing that.
That's not good ethics for an investigator. It's not good ethics if you are a sensitive psychic. I would be appalled if someone said they were a psychic and turned around and did that. I'd be like, you're not a psychic. You're not a sensitive because you have no sensitivity.
Did anybody say anything to him or correct him and told him to stop it?
I did when we were doing it. I let him, because he wasn't going to stop at first. And then he stopped finally. And I said, we really have to be more respectful. There are ways to ask questions without being disrespectful. And then the person who was with him said, well, he's a psychic and he's a sensitive, so he doesn't need help. He knows what he's doing. He's professional.
Oh, well, excuse you.
And I don't even challenge these people because they're a dime a dozen. And I just laugh like, okay, I'm glad you have all the answers, because the rest of us who are real investigators, we don't.
Right.
So we're so glad that you're around to give us this knowledge and wisdom.
Right. And nobody has all the answers.
No. And that's a good example, again, of ethics. Of trying to communicate when you're investigating. You just don't want to do that.
Be sensitive to what happened. Be sensitive to your surroundings. I mean, if you're able to find out a little bit of history ahead of time and you're able to ask questions, you know, nobody's going to talk to you if you're going to be, excuse me, an ass, a jackass. Nobody's going to talk to you, dead or alive.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't know. And what makes you think that somebody's going to answer you? I mean, especially if you're going into a territory where they used to be, they'll probably just tell you in their own way to, you know, F off.
That's
Yeah.
why I wish when people do EVP recording and they do behave like that and they
Yeah.
ask nasty questions, I don't know why. If I was a ghost or spirit, I'd be answering those questions. And let me tell you, the answers I would give is not what they would
It's
want
not
to
what
hear.
they want to hear. Yeah.
You know?
Right. And I'm surprised the ghost didn't throw a chair at him or something.
Exactly.
You know,
A lamp.
a lamp or something, a poltergeist, throw a chair.
Knock a
Okay,
wardrobe
aim at
on
that
him.
one.
Excuse me, but while you throw the bed on you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's when, excuse me if I'm drawing it in, but that's when a poltergeist actually becomes useful is around somebody like that.
Fetch.
Yeah, exactly.
Throw something now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not on command, but you know.
Right. You know, I know that sometimes people don't mean to be insensitive, but sometimes they can come off as being insensitive when they don't mean to be, and it sounds that way to my ears, and that's partly one of the reasons why I was thinking about this topic. We were at a conference over the spring at Sutter Creek, and I was listening to some people talk about some of the former investigations they've been in. There were some great people there. I had some wonderful experiences at that place, but I overheard some talk from some people who were talking about where they've been, and they were talking about going into an old house. I think it was either an old house or old hotel. I couldn't really tell because I was just kind of listening here and there, and they were talking about going into this closet where this person committed suicide. And they said, well, you know, I kind of wanted to see what it felt like. And they talked about taking a stool and standing up there to see, you know, how high it was and what it felt like. And I think maybe they were doing it just to see what it felt like and just to get the feeling of the place. But I was wondering if that might have gone a little bit too far. I don't know.
Not very tasteful.
It wasn't very tasteful to me. And if the person is listening and they want to defend themselves on why they did that, feel free to call me. Feel free to call me on it because, you know, I was listening and I was interested, but I was thinking to myself, wow, isn't that kind of a little insensitive? I mean, to me it felt that way, but if you didn't mean it to be insensitive, I understand. I'd like to hear about it. You know?
And if you want to call us after 9, our music break just after 9 o'clock, the number will be 628-444-3202. Again, not until after our 9 o'clock music break there. Right after that ends, we'll be taking calls at 628-444-3202, but not until then.
Right, and I'd love to hear your calls. And, you know, anything I'm saying, if anybody recognizes themselves in what I'm saying, feel free to call me on it. I'm always open to hearing your opinions and open to hearing your side of it. Just because I was listening on the sides and it didn't feel right to me doesn't mean that you don't have a side to it too.
You know what it seems
I'm trying to
like,
be fair about this.
Do you know what it seems like to me, the person that did that?
What?
It seems like something you would be influenced by watching a lot of the TV shows. Because, let's face it, for a TV show for dramatic purpose, getting on the chair, putting a noose around your neck, pretending, trying to see what it's like, it's very theatrical.
Yeah. It's very theatrical,
and a lot of the TV shows, they don't necessarily provoke by doing it,
right.
but they'll do activities that might engage and get a response. And it just seems like something a TV show would do. Maybe if this person saw lots of ghosts on any TV shows and thought, hey, you know, if I put this noose around my neck, get on this stool in the closet, maybe I can get a response from them.
Yeah, that would be a very dramatic gesture, but it's not a very sensitive one, and if the spirit of that ghost is watching, it's probably a very hurtful one to see that. I mean, you got to think, if these people are watching and they're nearby, that's very hurtful. I mean, that's what I mean. Be sensitive.
Well, it's hurtful anyway, even if it wasn't the person that did it.
Even
originally.
if it's hurtful anyway, exactly. I mean, be sensitive to what happened. I mean, I wrote a blog about this earlier, and I was talking about approaching all of this with a sense of compassion and empathy. Because, you know, one of these days all of us at one point are not going to be here. And
no one ever told me that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so many plans.
Sorry to disappoint you, Anthony.
All right.
But, you know, I mean, if somebody was approaching something about you, you would want somebody to be sensitive to what you went through, be sensitive to your feelings, even if you're no longer, if you no longer go near the places where you used to be and you've moved on. You want somebody to be sensitive to your memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
so
two of the topics I don't want to forget about that I think still also delve into the ethics of ghost hunting. The first being, or the next second being, paranormal teams who charge for personal cases in people's homes who have maybe had a disturbance, they're fed up, and they're desperate. You know, they've called a priest, nothing happened. Who do you call? You can't call the police. It doesn't solve the problem. So a lot of these, I've seen it happen. A lot of these people, even in rich communities, poor communities, it doesn't matter. Apparently the paranormal isn't very selective. Everybody's a equal opportunity haunt. They call these paranormal teams, and some of them really, they have the nerve to charge a flat fee to do a walkthrough, another fee to do the investigation. And they have certain criteria they want, like we need water for our team. I've spoken to someone recently, a friend of mine who was part of this group like this that charged, and she was like, "Do you really charge?" And he's like, "Of course we do. You know, our time isn't free, you know." And I thought, wow, you know, here you're charging someone to do what? To collect evidence, because let's face it, people can claim they know how to cleanse a house, rid of the evil from the house. They don't really know. They can't see it. They can't. I mean, maybe they can feel it, but how do you really know it's gone? You can't guarantee it's gone, and you're taking someone's money,
right?
Because you've told them that. To me, that's like, wow, really? I mean, but there are psychics who kind of do the same thing,
right? Especially
Especially phone psychics. People who do the readings over the phone, to me, seems kind of impersonal. And it just sort of, at that point, you're phoning it in, for lack of a better term, and you're just collecting a paycheck. Now, I think if you're talk to that person, speak with that person, to me, that's different because you have a connection. But over the phone, I'm very leery, and I think that might slide into that.
You know, I have an issue with large fees. Now, I'm not against fees completely, and the reason I'm not against fees...
In what sense, though? I mean, like cleansing your house, investigating your house?
Well, I used to do readings, and
but that's different.
Yeah, it's different, but also when you're going into a house, though, and you're cleansing, and you're also... And when you're going into a house and you're cleansing the energy, or you're investigating... You are doing a reading in a sense, because you have to read the energy. You have to read what's going on before
you're there to sense everything.
To sense what's going on. So you are doing a reading in a sense.
Yeah.
So when I used to do readings, I used to charge, but what I did was a sliding scale, a donation, and whatever they could afford, even if it was the smallest donation, if they could afford it, they would give it to me. If they could afford a little more, they would give it to me. And sometimes when they didn't have any money, they would say, you know, I make jewelry, can I give this to you? Or they would bring me a box of chocolates or a bouquet of flowers or something like that, just to show appreciation. So it was more like an exchange. But I didn't sit there and say, well, I'm sorry, but you know what? You don't have $200, so I won't do the reading, and you can't have your answers, you know.
Yeah, some psychics do $500 for 30 minutes.
Oh my God, that's to me that's crazy.
And I won't mention any names, Sylvia Brown.
No. And you know, and about readings over the phone, I kind of can defend that part a little bit, because I have done readings over the phone, and I have friends who are psychics and who've done it for years, and they've done readings over the phone, and you actually can. Because you can feel the energy over... The phone's a very sensitive instrument. And if you're sensitive and you're tuned in, you can still feel it over the phone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's opinion.
You can. You can feel it over the phone, and you can still read the energy. It's better I prefer it in person myself. But I have done long-distance readings, and they've been successful. But, you know, I don't believe in charging exorbitant amounts. I really don't.
Well, what I mean, though, is like a paranormal investigation team
yeah.
investigating someone's house, personal residence,
Right.
charging them $700 to walk in with 5 people, spend 2 hours, collect audio, visual, whatever, photographs, video, and then they can turn around and say, "Oh, we didn't get anything. Thanks." As it's different because
It's crazy.
a psychic who does readings and a tarot reader, you are providing a service exclusively for that person. They know what you're going to do. It's a little bit different than a psychic team coming in and saying, we don't really feel anything today. We didn't capture anything on our cameras. And you know what? This person's been doing it since Tuesday. This is George. He's been a paranormal investigator since last month. But we're professionals, and that's why we charge, because our time isn't free. Those kind of people, I'm floored, because if there's something really, really evil in someone's house or a really bad negative energy, and they don't rid it, they just come in and say, "Hey, yeah, you got something bad here. Good luck finding someone to get rid of it." They're back to square one again. So I could see where a lot of people wouldn't want a team to come in if you're not going to help me get rid of it.
Right.
When we were part of a team before, when I was part of a team before, we thought every team needs to have somebody has an educational background in psychology, because we've had a lot of cases. They weren't paranormal. You could tell there were psychological issues in the family.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Conflicts, things like that might have sparked the dark energy.
Oh yeah.
So it's sort of poltergeist activity.
Right.
But again, how do you address that if you don't have someone trained to do, in psychology, to have a conversation with, saying, maybe you should, here's some suggestions, here's some resources, someone who might cleanse it for you, this person might do this for you. Different religions come into play, like what do you tell this person versus that person?
It's more complicated than people think it is. It's not just about getting rid of some energy that's bothering their house. It's what's sparking that energy. It's what's going on in that person's psychological makeup that's causing it. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, and you got to. And I would suggest, if you're really doing this kind of service, okay, excuse me for suggesting. I'm not, I don't do this. You do, but. And if you already do this, that's fine. But have a meeting with the family first, or whoever lives there. Find out what's going on in their lives, sort of like a counseling meeting, and sort of take some notes, and then that gives you. I think it gives you better prepared if you're going to be doing something like that, to make sure it doesn't happen again, or to make sure that they are actually going about the process of cleansing themselves, whatever stuff they're causing, and then that makes it easier for your job, and that actually starts. It takes more than just a couple of people to come in and clear something.
I could see where some of these groups, I could see where it would be tempting to charge someone.
Yeah.
Because you're doing what you're doing. You've been doing it for a while. You've done it different cases in different people's homes, different experiences, different situations. And here's someone who's completely novice, has no idea what any of this is about. You're thinking, this is actually pretty easy money. If we go in, we're here for 4 hours, we get $700, we all split it, or maybe we don't split it. Maybe it goes into the group's fund, kiddie fund, and they use it to go on other investigations or a private investigation or what have you.
Yeah.
I could see where that, if you continually charged and you got money, and there are people who will call and pay money, because there's some people who think, well, it must not be real if it's free, and I won't call them. But if I have to pay for a service, okay, it must be real then, because I have to pay for it. There actually is people who think that way.
Right.
And
no,
I guess,
I can get that. Yeah.
And they get taken advantage of, but maybe some of them deserve to get taken advantage of by thinking that way. It's just a question of how long have you been doing it? Why are you charging me? And we had a strict rule. We wouldn't even accept water. Using the restroom was about the only thing we would do.
Yeah.
But we would never accept water, food of any kind, and never accept any money, because we don't have the answers. And ethically, we didn't think it was right to ever charge for anything. On most groups, I mean, there's like an unspoken rule in most paranormal groups, you just never charge. And if you do, trust me, you're in the very, very, very minority if you do start charging people.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody I know who does this kind of work and who's gone in, and who's actually gone into people's houses, they They do it with a sense of that they really care. I don't know. I personally don't know of anybody who goes in there and just wants to charge and just feels, well, I have a service, I have the knowledge, you don't. I don't really know people like that. I mean, I've heard of people like that, but I don't.
Right.
You know, and back at Sutter Creek, you remember Linda and I, we did we actually
We have a
taught
break
people.
here in less than a minute. So if you guys want to call after 9, they'll have a music break after our station break here. After 9, we're going to have calls at 628-444-3202. Again, that's 628-444-3202. Again, that's after the music break coming up here real quick. We're going to take your calls. So if you want to discuss anything we've been discussing so far, ethics of ghost hunting, if you have something you want to add, if you want to argue either one of our opinions,
Right.
we'd love to hear from you. And
If you have a story to tell, please, we'd love to hear that.
absolutely. So we will be right back in just a few minutes, probably about 10 minutes actually, and we'll dive right back into our topic tonight, which is ethics of ghost hunting. All right, we actually have a call, Verna.
I believe Kathy's on the line.
How did you know? You're like psychic.
Yeah.
All right, hold on and we'll see if she's around. Hey, Kathy, are you there?
I'm here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Tony and Berna. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. We can sort of hear you. It's pretty low.
Oh, okay, I'll try to speak up louder.
There you go.
Kathy, I remember meeting you at Sutter Creek, and I really enjoyed your company, and I really enjoyed some of your blog posts.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and I really enjoyed your post today as well.
Thank you.
So, you heard our topic was ethics of ghost hunting. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, I think there are a couple things of concern. I get very concerned when people have no experience and then they offer their services to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that people should get trained, have experience before they go into someone's home.
Now, do you mean in the capacity of just investigating or actually charging for their service as well?
Well, I think both, because I think if you don't have the experience, you shouldn't be going into someone's home and telling them what's happening.
Right.
That's just my personal feeling in the matter. Also, yeah, for pay, I think there are so many good groups out there that are willing just to do it to help people that I like that motivation more.
My only fear would be giving whoever it is a sense of false hope, because they get excited themselves, like, wow, I'm an investigator, I'm charging for this, I want to do a good job, and we're going to get rid of this, and maybe even psychosomatically believe it themselves that, well, when we do this, we get rid of it every time. Do you know what I mean? Instead of just saying, realistically, we're going to do our best to try and help you. If not, we're going to come up with other resources. And I know there are groups out there that think, oh, okay, we got rid of it. We did what we came here to do. And then find out later it comes back or it's not gone.
Well, it's worse.
Or worse, exactly. Like it just stirs it up. It just makes it angry. The big negative feelings just get worse and worse from everyone involved. I've never personally been involved or even talked to a group that has done that directly, but I know friends who have been in a group, and they're like, they left it really quickly once they found out they were charging people just to walk into their house, a flat fee of $200 to do a walkthrough, $500 just to investigate for 2 hours. And that's just to collect evidence. It's not even to say, hey, we're going to get rid of it. It's, yeah, you got something here. It's pretty bad. Thanks. Can I have my check?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. That's just wrong. And I caution anybody out there, check the referrals on these people, the recommendations, and you should not have to pay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just get references, other people that could vouch for them, saying, hey, yeah, I've known them for years. They do great work. Here's some other people maybe that you can talk to that we've investigated for. References
and a record of what you've done, and a record of some of the work that you've done in the past really help, because now you mentioned, Kathy, that people who have no experience, I know you're saying it because this is something that you're familiar with, but what have you met these people who've had no experience? What do they tell you? I mean, what do they go by when they tell you that they're going to be going into these places?
I think that they think they know everything because they've watched television shows.
Oh, that's
and
scary.
they've been on online chat rooms.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Everything I learned from television.
Yes. And, there are enough opportunities, there are enough paracons, there are colleges that offer classes, like in Reno. And, there are things people can do. Or, if there's nothing, no classes or conferences in your area, hook up with a reputable group. Get that experience. Know what you're talking about. Know what you're getting yourself into. Know how to deal well with other people, and especially clients that you're trying to help. Don't make the situation worse.
Exactly. We were just talking about how it's not such a bad idea for paranormal groups to find someone who's had even a background or a degree or some education in psychology. Just because I've gone on cases where the families claim it's paranormal, you get there and you realize, wow, there's a lot of psychological issues going on in the family that isn't paranormal, that might be causing the paranormal.
Yes, definitely.
And not to get into the religious side of this, but there are actually some ministers, some men of religion who have specialized in this type of thing, and they've taken the time to learn about it during their training. Like, take for example the Catholic Church. When you become a priest, you learn about exorcism, you learn about possession, and that's part of your training, and they're specialists in that. And I've actually told people, go to a church and get some holy water, or call the church and see if there's a priest that specializes in that. And they say, oh, well, that's the church. I'm not religious. I said, you don't have to be religious. This is something that they're trained in. They know what they're doing. Have them come in and have them find out what's going on in your house. And, I said, they've been trained in it, see what happens. And they did it, and they actually had some good luck with that.
Yeah, in fact, the Catholic Church has like reinvigorated their exorcism training probably in the last 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, they've kind of taken it out of the shadows. And my only concern is, if it's not a Catholic church, that you just need to make sure that the clergy person is not coming from a position of fear or that everything is evil.
Right. Well, I think
not everything is evil.
Right, and I would hope that if they've had training in this, that they can overcome that fear, or that they're not that they're not bringing that to the person, or hopefully not. But apparently, some of the clergy that they've called in were very kind and very compassionate and caring, and they really did try to help. So that was a good thing.
It is a good thing, and I think that's a benefit to the Catholic Church, is they've been dealing with this for so long, and they have a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this will actually make a very good topic for our topic for next week, too.
It will.
It will. That's kind of getting into that area a little bit.
What's interesting, though, is I think it wouldn't hurt for paranormal teams in general, speaking of ethics, just for knowledge's sake, have a little bit of knowledge of beliefs in other religions before you go stomping in someone's house and say, you need to try this, this, and this, or it won't work. You're not really thinking about whose home you're going into, what beliefs they may have, their practices, just their upbringing. It may be offensive. One house I went into, obviously I'm Catholic, but they were like really severely religious and had an altar, St. Mary, they had candles, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, wow, okay. So it kind of gave me a different perspective. Different people have different levels of faith and practice and ritual. And you really got to kind of read about them before you just sort of stumble into them and make a mistake, look like a fool, embarrass someone else.
I agree. I think you have to be open and understand that not everybody believes the way you do, and accept that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously evil's evil. It has different names, obviously, but it'd be nice to know what those names were, or just some general terms. That would be good for like a case manager to take on. So a little bit of basic information, know about the kind of family you're going into. Because if you have a good questionnaire as a paranormal group, you're going to know what their religion is, their experiences. Do you watch TV shows? Ours was pretty vast, but we included that so that we kind of had an idea going in, so we didn't say, whoa, make an assumption when we shouldn't have.
Yes, that's very wise. Very wise.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling in, Kathy. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was really great getting your insight, and it was really good hearing from you.
Well, thank you, and good luck with your radio show.
Thank you, and I enjoyed our walk
you.
in the graveyard at Sutter Creek. That was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Fun. Thank you for indulging me to go to the Oddfellows part. So.
Absolutely. All right. Well, have a good night, and definitely call us back sometime.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye, Kathy.
Bye.
See you later.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kathy Berry. Some more insight into the topic, which I think is interesting. Oh,
We got another call.
We got another call. Hello, Ecto Portal. You're on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, is this Tony?
This is Tony.
Tony, you're still. Are you live? Or are you being recorded?
We're live.
We're live here. You're on the air.
Maybe.
You're on the air.
Hello. Hi, Tony.
Hi.
Hi, Vernon. Great show.
Thank
Oh,
you.
hi, Sharon.
I managed to listen just to the last half hour because I was having problems getting the broadcast to come through on my computer, but now I can hear you fine.
It is working, though, right?
Yes, it is.
Yay.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad everybody's able to hear us.
Confirmation.
And the part when I got through to your broadcast, you were talking about people who charge, paranormal teams who charge to walk through a person's home and to either cleanse it or just do an investigation of their home. That really doesn't sit well with me, that thought, because it's not paranormal researchers, investigators. It's not like it's board certified
Right.
and what have you. So, and the experience between different groups is so vast. I mean, some groups are just maybe a few months into it. Other groups have been around for years. And I think the only thing people who do have problems could base who they could call is on the reputation and just referrals from people, because I don't see how else they could get.
It amazes me that there are people out there who do think, like, if I don't pay for it, it must not be worth something. So if I'm paying these people, it's better than just some group who's going to come out for free. You know what I mean? There are people who think like that.
Yeah, there are people who think like that, and
well, they're really they're kind of base everything on material world, I guess.
Yeah, and that's probably
the value of thing. I mean, you're valuing gold or something like that.
Exactly. That's probably the angle they take, is like, oh, well, if I don't pay for something, I don't get something worth something.
You know, those people, there's a sucker born every moment. I mean, like, if we were really, you could make so much money off this.
Exactly. Well, then you ask, okay,
if
if you're gonna pay for it, then maybe it's not such a bad thing that you're having to pay for it because you're willing to pay for it.
Oh, I think donations would be a good way to go.
yeah, I don't think a donation's a bad idea.
No, because like I was an astrologer, years and years ago. And I went, there's actually a school in San Francisco called the Astrological Faculty. And took courses for about 3 years. And afterwards, to be certified as a professional astrologer, we had to take a test that lasted 8 hours. And it was taken in the blind. We were given just the birth date and location and time of birth of like 5 individuals. We weren't even told whether they were men or women, and we had to answer a series of questions based just on drafting a chart on their birth data alone. And that was an 8-hour, really strenuous test.
Wow.
And I wish there was something like that we could do for people in the paranormal.
Right. Do your home
some sort of certification.
study
and
homework. Yeah.
Almost like a paranormal college, just to
just to.
It's a good
weed
idea,
out,
actually.
The ones who aren't, really worth their salt. Just something that that people could feel more comfortable in calling some of these groups. And but unfortunately, no, because for that you need some kind of unity, and I don't think there's much unity in the paranormal community.
Actually, in the Spiritualist Association, they've had spiritualist classes and certifications in colleges, I believe. And now, if there's some spiritualists listening to me out there and I'm wrong, please correct me. But I do believe there's been some spiritualist teachers who've actually done certifications, and they taught them about readings and about they taught them about this sort of thing. And they actually do get tested for it. That's actually a good thing to ask the Golden Gate Spiritualist Church, because I do love to have them on one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're one of the oldest spiritualist churches in San Francisco. But they do something like that, and they do hold classes all the time. And I think that I do think it's a great idea to have the paranormal community do the same. And it's sad that you say that you haven't experienced much unity, because every time I've been around the paranormal community in the conferences and the places I've been, I've experienced a great unity among the people I've worked with.
Yeah, I think I know what Sharon's talking about.
You're fortunate,
Yeah, exactly.
I feel very fortunate. I mean,
you are.
There's a couple things I'm kind of like about, but not much,
There are groups, though, that their whole sole purpose is to get a TV show, be the best group over someone else, even at the cost of someone else.
Well, that's more entertainment, Tony. I think they should go to acting school for that. That's not because a lot of it is on television for entertainment purposes.
Exactly. Which would fall under ethics too, though. I think if you pretend you're in a paranormal group just so you can get a TV show, that kind of falls in ethics too, I think.
It does fall under ethics.
Well, I guess people who watch these shows for entertainment purposes, they don't necessarily believe in the paranormal, and they just watch these shows to be entertained. And so there's no strict guidelines, ethical guidelines, of whether you're like a bona fide paranormal researcher or not.
Yeah.
And it gives them a very different view of what the real thing is like, because...
Well, they're presenting these as reality shows. That's what's disturbing. They should just present it as entertainment.
Yeah, reality.
Reality shows, and they find out that the reality is so much more different. In my blog, I touch a little bit upon this. Remember the part, I don't know if both of you read my blog, but the part where I talk about to have empathy and to be compassionate when you're going into these places where there may be some lost souls, or there may be some souls, some spirit activity, and be sensitive to it. But and I was mentioning that as much as you have compassion, you can't help everybody. And what I say is, if you can't help them, don't try, because you have to protect yourself, and you have to proceed with caution when you go into any kind of activity like this. And I mentioned that there are people who have special services and who are skilled in this sort of thing. And
definitely.
Yeah, so it's nice that you want to help, but if you can't and you don't know how, don't try, because you don't know what hot water you're going to get yourself into. I just mentioned, just say a little wish and a little blessing for that person, whoever you're thinking about, and just wish them well. And to me, that goes a long way. it goes a long way because I mean
Precisely.
they probably don't get many in
I agree with you.
I mean
I agree 100% with what you
Yeah.
just said, Verna.
right. So I touched a little bit upon that, and I think that kind of goes with what we're saying now.
I agree.
And you know, I don't even know, like Tony brought up, it's good to have people on your team, or at least people that you can refer to professionals, because at times when you do show up at someone's home, you might realize that the problem is psychological, or they have a drinking or drug problem, or and that is the cause of all what they may think is going on in their home. And so it's good to have professionals you can refer them to in that respect. And I don't know, I try to help people, to help themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the most important
I don't know
key.
if I could do it for them. It's like someone who tries to, if they're trying to quit smoking or drinking, they have to do it for themselves. You could suggest things, but ultimately it's up to them if they want to be rid of it or not. And some of these, a lot of people I've noticed in the years of having done personal going into people's homes, a lot of them are just cries for attention. They just want attention.
Definitely.
And that's a whole different ball game. It's not like it's not paranormal. They just poor souls who need attention.
You know, my friend Terry called a few weeks ago about a woman in his church who was possessed, and he actually saw it. And remember, he saw her levitate off the floor. And his father counseled that woman before she actually got in too deep with that. And she was depressed because her mother died. And he mentioned that whole family was having problems, and that there was weird activity in that house with that whole family, because everybody was there was a lot of low energy in there, and everybody was really depressed. And the father tried to counsel and give them some spiritual tools to help themselves, and it didn't work, and that's why it got in so deep. So that's a great example of how these problems can manifest, and they can just get worse and worse.
Yep. It feeds on negativity, and just grows and grows like a big, black hairball.
Yep, snowballs.
And I think that's beyond what we can do as paranormal researchers or investigators. We really need professional help of, I think, therapy, psychologists, religious people, something else. There is a limit to what we can do.
Yep.
And the best we can do is to refer them to people who can help them in that respect.
And ethical people, that's the bottom line. Ethical people who have respect for this type of thing, and who have good ethics and good values and really care is what it comes down to.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's your reputation's on the line, too. You can't refer someone that you don't even know if they're ethical or not.
Oh, right.
I mean, that sort of reflects on you, so you have to know who you're referring.
Exactly. Know a little bit about their background, too, before you just send someone off to them.
And I don't know, but that's why I don't do a lot of personal, private residences anymore, because a lot of times, I would say more than 50% of the time, it's not, it's like psychological issues.
Yep, I agree with you 100%, Sharon. That's what I observed. Is I was surprised, but it's the reality of it.
Right. I mean, yeah. That was eye-opening. But but as far as charging go, Verna, I think that that goes upon determined upon someone's reputation. Like, I know that some psychics, very good psychics, who charge because they need to.
So do I.
And that's all they rely on. That gift,
so do I. I know a couple who do make their living on it, and they're great people, and I would not hesitate to recommend them to these people. They're definitely the real deal, and they definitely negotiate with you if you don't have the funds, or There's one lady who I'm not going to say her name on the air now, but I do like to get her. I do want to get her as a guest later. When my sister and I lost our mother and we were grieving, she didn't want to charge my sister and I to come in. She just wanted us to come in, and she wanted to do a part counseling and part reading so that she could help us through this, because even though my sister and I are sensitives and we can do readings ourselves, we were so grieved at the time that we couldn't see the forest from the trees. So she actually did this as a service, and she normally charges a fee, but she didn't want to charge us. She was great, and she just said, just do something nice for somebody else, and just pass along pass it along, and she was happy with that, and we're still friends with her to this day. She's really one of the best psychics in San Francisco, I think.
Oh,
Wow.
wonderful.
Yeah.
That was good.
Lovely
Anyhow,
Scottish lady.
well,
yeah.
I'm going to, that was great speaking with both of you. I'm sure there are other callers wanting to speak, and so I'm going to
I hope so.
say good night. And,
Thank you for your insight as always, Sharon.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you,
enjoyed
Sharon.
the show.
Thank you. You have a great night.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Sharon.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're actually going to have a quick music break here for about 9 minutes, and then we're going to come back and continue our topic. And we're going to talk about vandalism, ghost hunters who may not be ghost hunters, who don't respect property and historic locations. So that's another variation on this topic, I think. So our topic tonight is ethics of ghost hunting. We've been discussing various degrees of ethics, I think, in the paranormal field as it is. And I think one that it's getting more and more prominent, and it's kind of disturbing, and I think we have TV shows to thank for this, is vandalism and respect and ethics of historic locations, landmarks. There are new novice paranormal groups that start out. They usually go by their local town, urban legend, local ghost stories. And I was reading different articles today. Just as an example, one was an abandoned train tunnel in this town. I don't remember where it was, which is probably okay. And this group of kids, 20, 21, 22, 23, decided to go in and investigate this abandoned train tunnel. And there's like graffiti all over it, and I think it was from World War I. And a woman lived next door, and her house was next door, and these kids would come out at night and then would try and investigate, and they would just record, use a camcorder, not doing too much, probably making a lot of noise. And this woman apparently saw this so often, who lived next door, that she actually got a BB gun and was shooting at the kids whenever they were near the tunnel or investigating. Now, I think that's a little extreme. I mean, yes, ethics-wise, this is a historic place. Maybe you're not supposed to go in there, I don't know, but you should respect people outside and around the place as well. If you're going to be noisy, she should have called the cops, maybe not shot a BB gun at them.
Not take it into her own hands like that.
Exactly. And another example, when I was in New Orleans in 2013, there's LeBeau Mansion, which we saw. We were on a riverboat cruise going down the Mississippi, and you can see the LeBeau Mansion off to the side. A beautiful old southern mansion. Excuse me. We're like, wow, we pointed it out, and it was really cool. They gave us a little bit of history about it. I get home, and literally a month later, I see in the news some kids broke into the mansion. They were drinking, smoking pot, and I guess they tried to summon the spirits by banging on the floorboards. I don't know how that's supposed to get the spirits.
How's that going to help?
I don't know, other than make the place fall down. And they got so frustrated, they said, that they decided to just light it on fire to see if that would, bring out the ghosts. Well, it brought out the cops. It brought out the cops, and they were arrested. And they said, "Well, what were you doing in this building? Why did you break in?" Well, we were ghost hunting. But it's funny, none of them had equipment. Again, is that an excuse for when I get arrested? Oh, I'm ghost hunting. Can I go now? Well, no, that's not how it works. And so they were arrested, probably prosecuted, because I know the historical society that ran it did their best, but they didn't have any security up around the mansion, so that could be part of their fault too. If you don't take care of the building, it's going to go disrepair, it's going to fall down, and people are going to vandalize it. So Again, though, it's ethics of ghost hunting. I mean, if you're a real paranormal investigator, you'd never break into a place. Well, I know Wolf Manor, Clovis Hospital, which is torn down now, they had continuous break-ins there. And again, that's another ethics thing. You break in because you don't get permission. That's not right. That's illegal.
No, that's not right at all.
You're not respecting the owner. You're not respecting the historical location. And you're basically making all ghost hunters and paranormal teams look bad. In the Goldfield Hotel in Nevada, same thing. A lot of people break in. They chip off tiles off the lobby floor that says the Goldfield, that it's been there since, 30s, 40s. I mean, every person who popped a piece of that tile off the floor, you're taking a piece of the Goldfield away.
Taking a piece of history.
Yep, and they go in and break the windows. And let's fool around, let's ghost hunt. We really want to get in there, but no one will let us in, so we should break in. Again, ethics. It's really sad that people have to do this kind of thing. It's a very, very disrespectful way to look at history and preservation. I mean, we want to investigate these places. Let's have respect for those that actually allow us to go in them.
It makes me wonder why when certain groups or certain people go near an historical site, all of a sudden they feel destructive. It's like, why do you have to feel so destructive all of a sudden? What does it bring out in you that you have to destroy a piece of historical property, or you have to break in and you have to cause some mayhem? I mean, I don't understand why they just have to. They just all of a sudden, and you find out, they didn't really have a destructive background, or they never indulged in this kind of thing before. Well, why now?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know a lot of younger kids, if they're not allowed in places, and they're always wanting to know what's it like in there. There used to be, where I used to live up in Washington, an abandoned junior high, but it wasn't really abandoned. It was, to us, it was abandoned. But it was really shut down. It was full of school desks and supplies. Everything was still in the school, so they shut it down and they didn't do anything with it. Well, we have to get in there. My brothers were like, I dare you to go in there, and I wouldn't go in there. And they'd go in and find experiments in jars in the basement from the science labs, and they'd spend the night, and of course the cops would come and drive them out. But I was never brave enough, and then later, of course, you wouldn't want to do that. You can get arrested. Who knows? It could be a federal offense, federal property. It's just not a great idea. It's also unsafe. Floors are rotting. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Anything you fall on something and you get hurt by yourself.
Yeah, a lot of these places are unsafe to go into. Because there's asbestos. There's, there's all kinds of, weird stuff in the ground, like holes in the ground.
Asbestos in the walls.
Yeah, I mean, lots of, you got to be careful. And, of course, when you're that young, you think you're immortal, you don't really think about it, and it doesn't really occur to you, but, I mean... Yeah. It's just, if anybody's thinking about going into places like that this is a warning.
Absolutely.
Be careful.
And again, it's still, I think it definitely is in the realm of ethics of ghost hunting, though, is respect.
Right.
For locations and, people's property.
Right, exactly. And, yeah. And if you're, and also, Kathy Berry touched among something about when you're first getting used to something like that and you're learning about it. I mean, please don't go so fast into trying to do it yourself and charge for a service for it until you've actually, I feel, been doing it for a few years, and you get to know mm-hmm. more about what, the psychology behind what happens when a spirit leaves the place, or what happens when somebody lives there, and how it can cause activity. I've heard of activity happening in a house where somebody's been doing repairs, or they're renovating, and then they never had a ghost in the house, but suddenly they knock down a wall or they renovate a room, and suddenly there's spirit activity. And you have to find out why. What's the psychology behind that? Why all of a sudden? There's so many factors. It always helps to do this for a while before you rush into having a service, or rush into trying to fix things for people. And
didn't you also had you wanted to reference something from your article as well again?
An article. Oh, well, actually, I was telling Tony over the break a story. We were talking about house atmospheres, and I was telling him a story about when I moved into this flat on Dolores Street. And I was when I first moved into the flat, me and some friends were sitting around. We were all having tea, and they had a back laundry room there where there was just a sink, but there was no washer or dryer. They use the laundry room for different things. So I was sitting there, and I just felt really weird about that laundry room. Something felt really weird from there, and I'm surprised nobody else felt it. So we're just sitting there having tea, and I kept looking back, and they said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "There's something weird about that room." And they're like, "It's okay. Don't worry about it." And I just said, okay. And I just kept drinking tea and talking with them. And I just kept looking back. And they said, "Verna, are you sure that there's something wrong with that room?" I said, "I swear there's something wrong with that room." So I said, "I'm going back there." So I just put my teacup down, and I went back there. I started looking around the shelves, looking around the room. And then deep inside one of the shelves, I pulled out 2 voodoo dolls that were binded at the feet, binded at the mouth.
Where were they at, though? Where did you find them?
They were in the back of. They were deep in the back of one of the shelves.
Okay.
They actually hid it in the back. They had some shelves there, and they had a bunch of stuff in front of it, and there was like some deep corners. And I moved
That's
the stuff.
not spooky or creepy at all, Verna. Finding voodoo dolls that are bound in a laundry room?
Yeah, bound. Yeah, they were bound, and they were bound in the mouth. There was a binding around the throat and the hands and feet. So I took an old towel, I wrapped it around the voodoo dolls, and I actually unbound them. And I had a friend walk with me, and we walked off the property to bury them.
Wow.
Yeah, and I told her, I said, "Where do these come from?" And she said, "Well, we had 2 roommates that were temporarily here, and they moved out. And they were really weird. We didn't know them that well, but they had weird energy." And I said, "Yeah, they did. Look what they did. And in your house."
Voodoo priestess, anyone?
Huh?
Voodoo priestess, anyone?
I don't know. I don't even, the way she described them, it was a couple of guys, actually, in their 20s, some young guys who were fooling around with it.
So little they know about voodoo.
Little do they know.
Be careful
and you
what
know
you
what?
do.
This is going to make a great future subject for the show about fooling around with different types of magic from different traditions, and you don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
It's going to be another great topic, but we'll get to that later. But anyway, this also falls into empowering yourself into learning about your own atmosphere, so that you don't have to call upon other people. When Linda
educate yourself. I think Sharon was
yourself.
mentioning that too. Educate yourself.
Right. When Linda and I were teaching people at Sutter Creek about protecting yourselves and about the different ways you can do it, we were doing it. Because a lot of people there were novice ghost hunters, and they were novices into this thing. But we were doing it because we wanted them to be empowered and to learn how to do it, so that in any situation, not just when you're investigating, if you feel vulnerable or you feel that the atmosphere isn't quite right, you have the knowledge and the tools to do it yourself.
Yeah, that's important, I think, too.
Yeah, it's all about empowerment
and experience. I think most of all experience, because if you see how different people's situations are and how people react differently to different things,
right,
you start to kind of gain your own database of reaction, what to expect when people have the same experiences, what kinds of signs can you see by listening and talking to them. And I think that's important too. As far as the whole topic tonight, ethics of ghost hunting, it really is, if you're in a good paranormal group, you're going to get good ethics from your teammates, seasoned investigators that you've had before with you. They're going to instruct you. They're going to show you how to do things, how to approach people, and out of respect, and just respect the locations, the owners, and other teammates too. Because there's a lot of groups that will have infighting. They don't respect each other. They don't have any ethics in their own groups. They're all too busy. I have better evidence than you do. I have better EVPs or photographs than you do. And it's not really about I'm better than you. Look what I have. Look what I can do. I'm so more talented than you.
And it doesn't
it's
help
about
anybody.
Discovery. It's about discovery.
Right. It's about discovering and sharing a mutual interest. And as I mentioned in my blog, it's about uncovering something that's going to bring something back to the living, so that we could learn something and we can share it and hopefully bring something good. We could bring a history, or we can learn about somebody and learn about what they did in their life, and then uncover something. I mean, it's all about learning and finding out what's behind a person's life.
Yep. Okay. Actually, we're out of time. So on that note, ethics of ghost hunting, I think we had a good topic this week. Good show. Thanks for the callers who called in. Kathy, Sharon, we always appreciate good calls. And until next time, folks, until Ecto Portal.
See you next time.
Ecto Portal.